Americans for Fair Taxation presents the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, president of Americans for Fair Taxation, and recorded by Bob Paxton, a volunteer with the Florida Fair Tax Educational Association. And now, this week's Chairman's Report.
Hello, I'm Bob Paxton with the AFFT Chairman's Report for Friday, March 20th, 2020. Manufacturing, the coronavirus, and Occam's razor. First, let's look at manufacturing. Manufacturing can be defined as any mechanical, chemical, or physical process by which materials are made into new products. And it doesn't have to be done in huge factories or plants either. It can be done quite nicely in small businesses. In an excellent article posted on the Balance website, Kimberly Amadeo looked at the state of manufacturing in the United States. Among some of her well-documented statistics are: in 1970, American manufacturing accounted for 24.3% of GDP. That's more than double the 2018 level of 11.6% of GDP. In 1970, China was the world's fifth largest manufacturer, but in 2010, it was the largest, with the U.S. now in second place. In 2011, 19% of manufacturers wanted to locate in the United States. That figure is now up to 37%. After President Trump's tax and regulatory changes, U.S. manufacturing production is increasing at the highest rate in a long time. As explained in a monologue by Tucker Carlson on Fox News, the U.S. manufacturing problem is not limited to just getting many of our kids' toys and clothes from other countries. Mr. Carlson points out that 95% of the antibiotics that people in the U.S. use are imported from China. So if China either intentionally or unintentionally cuts off the export of antibiotics, the result would be a significant health crisis in the United States. Now let's look at the coronavirus. The coronavirus is a viral strain that is creating havoc in the stock market and materially affecting manufacturing production in many countries around the world. Because the U.S. continues to discourage U.S.-based manufacturing with its reliance on the income payroll tax, the manufacturing slowdown in other countries is having a direct impact on the ability of many U.S. employers to keep their doors open and to continue to pay their employees. Now, many of these companies and their employees have almost no cash reserves, a problem due in large part to the income payroll tax system penalizing savings. Now, because many of these companies will have to close and send workers home, there's widespread panic that both businesses and individuals will be driven into bankruptcy. Now let's look at Occam's razor. William of Occam was a 14th century Franciscan friar and philosopher who asserted that when you have competing theories which try to provide the answer to a problem, you should not reject a solution just because it's the simpler one. In fact, the simplest solution is often the best answer. So how do these three things tie together? With the coronavirus causing manufacturing slowdowns all over the world, many companies in China and in other parts of the world will be unable to supply companies in the U.S. with products made or assembled offshore. This means that many of the supplies needed by U.S. companies to either produce or deliver products to U.S. stores are either not available or in many cases are available only at higher prices. If American companies can't sell products, many will have to close their doors and send their employees home, even if the coronavirus did not directly affect their employees or their customers. Employees who have no pay and no savings can't spend money, so many of the other stores in town that depend on those purchases may have to close as well. Now, closing is one thing, but rent, insurance, and outstanding payments to suppliers continue, and if these payments can't be made, the economic impact widens. Many of these suppliers will have to close, leaving their employees without the income they need to pay their bills. The downward spiral continues, creating more and more effect like a pebble thrown into a pond. One major component of this crisis is that U.S. manufacturing has declined, and even though it is currently increasing, it will be many years, even if the tax cuts and regulatory reform remain in place, before it even comes close to previous levels. Now, one question we must ask is why our U.S.-based manufacturing has gone down so much. Well, obviously, what has helped it start rebounding is part of the answer: lower income taxes and less regulation. Now, some pundits correctly point out that the service sector of our economy is growing. Now, that's true, but does that explain why the manufacturing sector has fallen behind? Well, no, it doesn't. We need to apply the principle of Occam's razor to find an answer, and the answer is a simple one. The major reason for the decline in U.S. manufacturing is the income payroll tax system. Now, here's some facts. The U.S. is the only major industrialized country whose tax system does not rebate back to its manufacturers a portion of the taxes that are included in the price of their exports. This makes the prices of U.S. goods higher than prices for comparable foreign goods on the global market. The U.S. is the only major industrialized country whose tax system financially rewards the imported products that compete against its own domestic products. And the U.S. income payroll tax system punishes companies and workers who want to save money by taxing their money when they earn it and then taxing it again when they invest it. So let's look at the fair tax solution. When the fair tax becomes law, not 37%, but probably over 70% of the world's manufacturers will want to move to the U.S. to produce their goods. U.S. exports will be 10 to 20% cheaper in foreign countries, thereby making them much more competitive and increasing demand for American products. Higher demand for American products means more American businesses and more American jobs. American consumers will have to pay the same 23% sales tax on imported goods as they will on domestic goods. So foreign-produced products will no longer have a competitive advantage in the U.S. market. Earnings for both U.S. manufacturers and American workers will increase rapidly under the fair tax. U.S. manufacturers will be able to keep not 70% of their earnings, the amount after the cost of the federal income payroll tax, but 100%. This will allow them to significantly increase their investment in expanding their businesses, improving current products, and developing new products. The more manufacturing that takes place in the United States, the less adverse impact overseas disruptions can have on U.S. markets. This will greatly reduce the level of layoffs and shortages in the United States. U.S. workers will be taxed not when they earn their money, but only when they spend it on new retail goods and services. Under the fair tax, no one will waste countless hours and money trying to comply with a complex federal income tax. The more savings that companies and people have, the more likely it is that they will be able to weather temporary economic disruptions like the one the coronavirus is currently causing. Companies and people will be rewarded, not punished, for producing more under the fair tax, and what you reward, you get more of. In conclusion, the principles of good taxation were formulated many years ago in The Wealth of Nations by economist Adam Smith. He made some observations that were true then and are still true now. Smith said it was really simple. An effective tax system should have 4 guiding principles: fairness, certainty, convenience, and efficiency. Now, not even the most effective mouthpieces for today's ruling class can make the argument that the present income payroll tax system meets even one of the above criteria. All they can do is spread confusion and tell us that we should ignore the principle of Occam's razor. They want us to believe that taxation and its effect on the economy is much too difficult an issue for us simple people to understand. Such a complicated issue requires their superior intelligence to deal with it, and it's in our best interest to just do what we're told. However, even simple people can understand why the fair tax fits all 4 of the criteria set out by Adam Smith. It is fair, certain, convenient, and efficient. The ruling class has long profited from the unfairness, uncertainty, inconvenience, and inefficiency of the income payroll tax system. And that's why they're fighting so hard to keep it in place, even though they know it hurts everyone but themselves and their allies. Do you want to see more manufacturing in the United States? Replace the corrupt income payroll tax system with a fair tax and get out of the way. It's time to take back control of our income and our lives and demand a sane tax system to fund the federal government. Demand that Congress pass the fair tax, the only truly fair tax.
This has been the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, President of Americans for Fair Taxation. Check back every week for news and information about the fair tax, and learn why the fair tax should replace our antiquated federal income tax system. If you'd like to receive a copy of the Chairman's Report in your inbox every week, sign up at fairtax.org.